Hello, Robert John Burton reading another script about my life with Asperger's. People with Asperger's syndrome can often seem stuck no matter what you try to do, no matter how you try to help them. We do not move forward easily in life. Sometimes we seem frozen stuck, perhaps worried, so we are stymied by anxiety, literally mentally frozen, and this cycle of freezing, or known as the freeze loop, people with Asperger's get stuck. It is a state where one seems biologically locked down. What happens is a stressful stimulus or an overload of sensations has shut me down past the fight or flight response. For example, when I was 17, I was bashed by several men because they said I looked like a girl. People often said so, as though it was a compliment when really it targeted me for abuse. I could not talk for days and spent the time in the psychiatric ward. Biologically, one's immune system shuts down. People with Asperger's tend to get sick a lot more. I have noted many times that regardless of my physical strength, I am often unwell. As well, people with Asperger's get sticky thoughts. We focus on one thing and it is ridiculously hard for us to shift attention quickly. Too many people have used this against me, even bullied me, to mentally multitask well past my capabilities. You can imagine teaching as a profession was a nightmare for me. I may procrastinate, and in this state is where one feels extremely disconnected and withdrawn. Public isolation is caused because there is no syncing of social skills and the intellectual processes required for face-to-face work. Team exertion is stressful and tiring. I could handle it better when I was younger, or I knew I had backup. As I age, my masking is dropping. Others do not accept this as reasonable. They are so important after all. This defense mode is a state where people with Asperger's are extremely disengaged and anxious. Many factors can produce the state, but mainly by one's resisting one's own sensations. I know it, but I cannot reach it. I always freeze and I need to escape and get rid of those awful confusing feelings that other people accept or have been trained to handle. My body physically shakes it out and I can become very agitated, which upsets people who observe my meltdowns. Neurotypicals assume I'm being ill-mannered. What is happening is a psychological action that everyone has, but is more immediate in people with autism. The extreme reaction is turning the cortisol that is stored in the muscle as stress there and turning it into energy. However, often the sensations are so uncomfortable and overwhelming, our feelings reach another part of the freeze loop, panic and meltdown. And then one freezes again, then one unfreezes, then one gets overwhelmed by one's feelings and one panics and experiences meltdown again, and then one freezes again, one unfreezes, and then you get the picture. The freeze loop is an over and over and over experience that continues over years and years. One may as well be an animal leading to slaughter. Ever seen the look of terror into a cat's eyes who's about to be put down? So how does one escape the freeze loop? Well, the answer has a proviso. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it will work after a while, and sometimes it will fail. Sometimes dramatically. Never mind, life is full of crash and burn scenarios. For us, we are constantly needing to monitor social situation. There is no comfort zone with people around. So to start with one unfreezing, and one feels, instead of fighting those sensations, trying to disconnect and distance oneself, which means getting so overwhelmed, ready for the next turn in the loop. Instead, one connects towards them and let the situation happen. Do not try and control it. Just let everything be, and it lies down and dies. Sometimes. Observe the poor thing. Emotions are such vulnerable, fragile things. Do not try and change it. Do not manipulate it. Let it be a lightning rod that directs it in one way and out the other side. Like the waves on the beach that ebb and flow. Allow those sensations to happen as a natural body process, which begins to establish trust. Hold space for oneself. Allow some patience to process the events. Do something else that is different while accepting there are no perfect answers. The caveat concerning a successful outcome concerns how much your mind is able to loosen the sticky thinking or rumination. Especially depressive rumination that is compulsive, practicing mindfulness and engaging in dynamic physical activities may allow for a stream of consciousness, thinking, and less rumination. However, this requires daily practice, real effort, perhaps some help that may not be available or not suitable for all people with autism. Sustaining positive moods, in my experience, is dependent on too many variables, especially sharing a life in a world where neurotypicals are ignorant of their effects on others. Too much of everything. And a depressive mood is not a major depressive disorder. Everyone gets sad at some point. However, for really depressed people, moving those thoughts requires therapeutic approaches that are not always accessible. Older people understand this, and the present conditions around coronavirus do not help. Pets are good. Working alone or developing creative talent certainly helps move the mind from dwelling on negative thoughts. Everyone may feel nervous at some time. It is natural and may even be life-saving in certain situations. But for us, feelings of anxiety are extreme, are triggered constantly and make life uncomfortable. This is Asperger's. There is a big difference between the anxiety that motivates you to complete an important task and the life-draining, debilitating anxiety that lives as a part of autism. A monstrous, spidery presence. This creature, left to its own devices, will grow worse. I know my symptoms of general anxiety include increased heart rate, rapid breathing, restlessness, mind distraction, and a lifetime of insomnia. As a boy, I would jump out the bedroom window and run around the paddocks. Older, I would walk the byways or work long hours into the night. My propensity to perform specific, repeated behaviours, which can really alienate others, or worse still, are used against me for bullying material. Look, he's doing it again. Told you, he's guilty of something, of nothing, of everything that others find wrong with the world. Post-traumatic stress disorder anxiety are the bricks and the mortar of my life and too many others. A million stories, a million war zones, all filled with horror stories of abuse perpetrated as acts of nature unnatural or because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The freeze loop is living hardened. Social isolation both helps and hinders my progress. I get involved, I need to be hurt, then run. If I fight, I lose as much because other support evaporates. I have broken their laws of behaviour. Freezing when blindsided with sudden overwhelming stimuli is more than a shock to the system, it is a threat to my life. Fight or flight makes sense when the stimulus is recognisable to me, because without comprehension, freezing is my default setting. For Aspie types, there is no making sense of people's political, personal or social chaos. The constant bombardment that typifies contemporary life, so many triggers. Bloody-minded grabs for little bits of power over others. I will be more vulnerable to unexplained attacks. Often people who do not like me, and that is a lot, randomly bombard me with life and death level threats. I do not understand what you want from me. Please explain. I have to take on so much, and even people who say they want to support me never explain their intentions or ever live up to them. When someone escalates a situation as they need a villain to burn at the stake because they have done something wrong or are being unreasonable, when this happens, I have to stop. I have to check, recheck, and knock on the sky to see if my answer makes sense. By which time others may have acted because I have been frozen because the time taken is more than might be expected. Some people do not want to fight but will act in a backstabbing manner. Some people do want to fight and escalate the situation to put me in my place. They need to be right. Some people use others to do the fighting for them. I'm not monstrous and mean. I do not understand what you want. Do not ask me to be forgiving and accepting when I have not been shown it. So, if you are not capable of being alone, your relationship with the world will always be dependent on the whims and demands of others. Others can be manipulative, and it suits them that you feel alone. But there is nothing to be afraid of in aloneness. I like the idea of the wanderer, the swagman, the hermit, or the itinerant worker moving and observing life alone or in the company of wild creatures. This image gives me some respite. This is my life. Thank you for listening.